Hi everyone, I'm super excited to host Arman Gukasyan is founder and CEO of Revizto, one of the longest standing names in BIM coordination software. Arman founded Revizto in 2008 after realizing that nearly a third of construction budgets were being lost to coordination failures. And I'm super excited to see how his journey over the years has evolved and we can learn from him.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So, Arman, take us back to the early days. You came into AEC from 3D gaming and GIS. What did you see in city mapping that convinced you that construction needed Unity engine grade software?
Yeah, I mean, I was mostly from the GIS because in early days, and overall, I'm not an engineer or architect. And from my background perspective, if you go to my personal level, I'm coming from a movie industry family. My dad was a very well-known producer, and my mom was in animation. So I was kind of destined to go to that field. And back in early 2000, I was trying to do that in Hollywood, and it was like the early .com days and .com boom, .com crash that actually took a lot of attention of mine to kind of shift my attention to go to a technology. I went and did the MBA for entrepreneurship in basically in digital, in IT, so called at that time. And this is the time when I got into a GIS firm in Switzerland to develop that software in business development, mostly for basically it was the one of the first 3D GIS systems. It wasn't just a GIS geoinformational system, but it was with a heavy 3D component. So we've been doing a 3D cities with all the informational layers behind it. And the main basically clients of ours were the city mayors of the cities and the city halls, basically. We've developed at that time, the entire mapping, for instance, of Dubai, UAE. We've been working with the Singapore, with Paris, London, and during that time, the shocking point for me was when I was entering to a mayor's kind of offices and those places. So I would first thing I would see is the physical maquette of the city or a part of the city, and where the main architects of the city would kind of with the decision makers would gather around and then say, this is what we're going to be building here. This is what the most of the saturation we see, so on and so forth. And it was kind of fascinating to me how one can make a decision on that complexity level looking at the physical maquette, which has nothing to do with the reality, and then you have so much information behind it that you need to kind of, especially what will be built in the future. And that was like the first impression of mine when it took my attention and full attention, and it was from 2005 to 2008 at that period. And then, I got basically shocked when I got into this space that basically at that time, and we didn't go so far actually from those numbers, but third of the budget, as you said, is wasted on during the construction because of the poor coordination and planning errors and so on and so forth. And when you do realize what's the amplitude and the impact from the budgetary and the construction waste perspective, it's humongous. And it's one of the biggest industries worldwide right now. We're at 13 trillion, even more than 13 trillion dollar industry, and it will be growing due to infrastructure and data centers expenditure. By in 13 years from now, we're going to be at $22 trillion industry, and it's still least digitized industry, right? So this is what, like, the moment that actually put me into a position that I said I want to make the changes. I want to actually do a real impact in this industry, and I want to find the solution. And for me, it was obvious that the data that we have in the city planning and construction overall is very heavy. Very few people can actually touch that data. Touch meaning that embrace and see the data in the depth. Everything is fragmented, and to me, from entrepreneurial perspective, I said, okay, what can I do to kind of simplify this complexity, to bring a simple interface? And this was the year when the first iPhone came out. And this was kind of like, for me a moment when I said I want to have this simple interface that we can actually give to anyone, even if you're 65-year-old engineer that never touched, barely touched any technology. You could actually take it and get started. So again, with the analogy of with the iPhone, UI. So, and this was like kind of the main ideas. How can I kind of bring to a simple interface to a complex data set that can unite everyone in the project team? Because if you look at overall the in the project teams, there are very few people. I don't know, 2 to 3% of the project team members who actually can go in and see the data entirely. I'm talking about the authoring tools, whatever. Right now, we're talking about the BIM authoring tools, so on and so forth. So how can we actually make this so accessible for everyone from the field, from the owner's perspective, from the end users? If we're taking the projects like hospitals, where you can at early stages give an access to nurses and doctors who are the end user of the hospital in the end of the day, that they can actually give their feedback and make a difference in the efficiency of the project that will be built. So that was like, sorry for a long answer, but that was like all those components were like part of the moment that made me to kind of step into this world and start to bring a gaming technology. White gaming is because I understood that the only technology that can handle, that massive amount of data and optimize, and, on the other hand, would, leave it as it is. So don't, without distorting the initial data, is the gaming technologies, like turning those massive data into triangulation and make it, as lightweight as possible. So these were like the main factors and things then when I started.
There's so many trajectories after that answer. But one thing I would like to know is it's been more than 17 years since it started. What has been the ups and downs? And if you can share the learnings from those times.
Sure. I mean, when I just started, and I left that company, that 3D GIS, because after the acquisition, I was offered to go to the acquired company and do the business there, but I said no because I was like entirely into this idea of mine. I found very quickly the first investment, was fortunate enough, and started the business. First, it was just an idea. We didn't have any roadmap. We didn't have any understanding because it was like a big unknown. And a lot of times when I was saying that I just want one click, just a product that is you're going to have a one click in your authoring tool, and everything what you have created here, you will see it in interactive mode, and you can share this with anyone else who have no idea how to use Revit, AutoCAD, or ArchiCAD, or SketchUp, so on and so forth. It was like the initial idea. And of course, it was so much, it wasn't, planned with a nice business plan that you're going to have, I don't know, the bottom line of the company that much, and this is where you're going to get, so on and so forth. So we didn't have that. It was like a big idea. And of course, the unknowns were more than, knowns. And from the industry perspective, when the first AU, when we released the first version of Revizto and came to AU in 2011, if I'm not mistaken, and we're showing the product, the first reaction was wow. But on the other hand, like, what are you going to do with the gaming technology in the AC industry? Give me a break. This is, it's not never going to work. So of course we had a lot of kind of comments like that. But a lot of early adopters, I would say not adopters, innovators at the time, who would actually see the light and see the impact. And it was purely on that enthusiasm of mine and the team who have been working, the developers that have been working on a product and following the path of the evolution of the product, that we could make to the point of 2000. It was a long way. I mean, it wasn't a startup for 1 year or 2 years, as you just said. It's been a 17 years. We're a pretty big company right now, and no longer a startup for years already. But like, first 5 years, it's been like, we literally would be going to the conferences, Revit Technology Conference, one of the early conferences that we went, which has nothing to do with Autodesk. It was just a name of Revit that they did. It's the enthusiast of Revit at that time that formed that conference in APAC region, in North America, in USA, in Canada, and in EMEA region. And they've been organizing 3 conferences during the year, and we've been going there and talking, and these are all innovators. and seeing, okay, what is it? What's the path of the development of the product, and how best to go priority wise to kind of tackle this industry. And the first 5 years it was only downs, I would say, in the sense of, okay, is it enough? No. Have you thought about that? No. Let's do this, let's do that. So it's been, we've been developing with a very high speed of development. We would, or in early days, we would release every, just any new company, we would release every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a new version. And the entire path was based on the feedback of the customer, taking the feedback, turning it into the product features, and then bring it back and to see how it works. Nowadays, of course, with the prototyping and vibe coding prototyping, you can do it on overnight. It's all great, but at that time it was, you would develop, so first to see, is it a miss or hit. So morally it was very, very, very difficult because you didn't have any support whatsoever. And um, I would say that, purely on an entrepreneurial spirit and the belief that we're doing a big thing was, the only hope, not hope, but kind of a fuel of our energy that, so you would understand, with first sales of the company, we started in 2015, not company, the product. We started in 2015. Before 2015, we didn't have any salespeople in the company. So we would actually do the development of the product, and then, understanding, okay, what's the product that will be ready to be sold. So first we were concentrated right from the beginning on the quality of the product rather than just the sales. So it's been kind of, we're a little bit unusual from that perspective.
What would have been like some tough choices you had to make along this journey?
I mean, in which sense, tough choices? You're in from business perspective, from product perspective, from team perspective. What you're interested in?
More on product and business.
I mean, tough choices. I won't say there was tough choices. We've been kind of following really I mean, we've been building the product we believed in, and I believed in, and it's been a pure, I've been in from early days. I've been in front of the customers. So I was in those conferences, me alone. I know until today a lot of our customers and guys who have been in this industry for years, because I've been kind of down on the earth and down on a field with them, and talking about the challenges, talking about what is it, because again, the way, I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm talking right now and thinking and giving a reflection. I think the toughest thing for anyone, not just for us, is to make sure that you're not just going and bringing, because like the end users that would say, this is the feature I want. But what you need to make sure that you actually disconnect that this feature, what I want, from the use case, and understanding what problem they're trying to solve. Because if you try to build the product that anybody says, I want this, I want that, I want that, you will become a product which does not address to anything, because it will be like a bunch of wish list stuff, and there won't be any flow within your product. So the toughest thing, of course, is that we would, talking to the customers, would say, okay, or the potential customers, to concentrate them to talk about the problems, but not giving us the direction what to build. Because we've been kind of proficient in bringing, and I mean, this is our job, is to bring a solution to a problem. So the concentrating the users to talk about their problems rather than telling us what exactly to build. Does it make sense? You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
that's where it's easy to kind of be disrupted, and especially when you're talking to a very influential clients and users who have been in the industry for years and stuff, and knowledgeable, is to follow what they not to follow what they say when they basically kind of telling you what to build. But you need to disconnect from that and say, and give that big picture question of what is it, what problem actually we're trying to solve with this, how applicable it is for everyone or a majority of the potential clients of yours. So I think from the product perspective, it was the biggest challenge, and to make sure that we're not kind of going everywhere and then just building features and features. So, and from the business perspective, is to have enough funds to run the business until you start making some money.
Yeah, as you were saying, like we in AEC, sometimes the customers have a big list, and staying focused to the lane, saying no to those features often require like a judgment muscle or a mental muscle of like how to I need more business. I want to make them happy, but also I have to stay on focus. So it's an interesting challenge. And
I
you
mean, we were
mentioned,
we were we were actually addressing that by telling them, okay, tell us about your problem, and then when we would come back with our solution, they would see that we come up with a better solution that they would even think of, because they're like boiling in the same soup over and over again. Again, in this industry, again, is so awkward because the industry's products are developed basically by engineers for engineers. What does that mean? It means that it's so complex. And there, look at take any of even, I mean, okay, I don't want to say anything bad, but like legacy even products, it's very hard to learn. And if you look at the stats right of our industry, we have so many, underskilled professionals that we need to upskill. We have a huge shortage of the professionals in our industry, right? And in US alone, if I'm not mistaken, is close to 300,000 open positions in construction industry. That's a lot of open positions. And how can you actually, making a complex product is not going to help to upskill the professionals. So you have to make it as easy as possible so they can get started, and then they can actually be learning on easier and faster. And then I mean, the reason why we actually launched the Revizto Academy and the product ourselves, the way we've done, we're measuring that anybody can get started on Revizto with less than a 30-minute time. So, and then they can actually build the skill set based on, their profession, whether they're field people, they're BIM coordinators, or, any other team member type, and they can train themselves what they want to do, what features are actually mostly kind of suitable for them, role based so-called trainings. And we're doing a lot and investing a lot into the trainings, because this is where we understand the industry needs more support.
and you mentioned about like early days going to AU in the conference and building. For someone who's outside the industry, like building those relationship can be difficult because you're completely unknown in a new industries, and we often hear this is a relationship driven industry, and that is something like is not scalable. It just takes time. There's no shortcut of build.
Absolutely.
So for founders who are like, we see a trend that they're moving to US and building for construction industry, and they want to find the product market fit. What are certain tips of like for them to build the relationship or get to the product market fit faster?
I mean, there are industry events that exist in this industry that is a must participating events that you need to go and build your relationship there. And that's what we did actually in the early days when we had RTC at the time. And, when you had basically this creme de la creme of the industry overall in worldwide, from APAC region to North American region, where these guys were kind of going around each, you know, conference and then sharing their very open. It wasn't PS conference at all. I mean, you need to find really depending what you want to build and what field you are within AAC, the platform, the events where you can actually go and learn and share and kind of get the build up your relationship with the right people. One of the places what we contribute is that we're doing our absolutely free events that we call this field days. And on field days we're not talking about ourselves. We always bring we have number of field days around the globe, and we do that locally with a purpose. So we can bring actually the power users and, from that region, we can share their experiences, not just share experiences on Revizto. We're talking about share your experiences, challenges, how you, I mean, what you use, etc. So open conversations, and they're coming and sharing their experiences. And this is where, we see a lot of good, building a good relationship between the industry people when they come and share and they spend some time together because everybody's busy, and spending a couple hours together and then learning some great stuff, what your actually local people can do, makes a lot of difference. So I would say, being as close as possible to your potential users, so-called, and participate the industry events, which are events where you can actually talk openly, not just events where you have thousands of people that you will be lost. There are a lot of community events, or, smaller events where you have, a good quality of people there who can share and ready to share their experiences and learn.
I want to talk about product a bit. Like from my experience, there I remember a time where there was a very heavy, complex stadium building, and I was trying to export and use it in Unreal Engine for using pixel streaming technology, and felt the pain how much if the model size in Revit is big, like the latency issues, the cleaning of geometry issue, and like so it's a very big and challenging problem. Like if the so we can elaborate what are the architectural decisions you had to make and the technical challenges while building the product.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why basically I chose gaming technology. And it's not about, I mean, it's irrelevant in the end of the day what engine you're using, because engine is like a framework, right? I mean, it's the same as I would say what programming language you're using, C++, C Sharp, or Java, right? I mean, the same for us. It's the gaming engine. I mean, in our case, we chose the gaming engine of Unity, but we have built 10 million lines of code. I mean, our code that actually, because we're using from Unity only I don't know, 2% of the Unity. It's the cross-platformness of the Unity, the core part. The rest is built from the scratch by us. It's the optimization, it's the publishing, it's all the feature set and the clash detection. Everything is built from scratch by us. So it's not like you just take a gaming engine and it will work. Unfortunately, it's not, and that's why you put so much. We put so much effort in the optimization perspective. And take a look at the point cloud that we bring to Revizto. They're flying because we're doing the processing of the and optimization of the files in order to fit. We have now have I don't know, mega projects from, especially from Middle East, for instance, where they have like 350 gigabyte file, 350 gigabyte file of Revit. It's a lot, that, and pushing all that into Revisto so it would handle. So they're kind of pushing the boundaries all the time, and we're actually taking that feedback, looking where they can have a bottleneck, and we're always and working on the optimizing even further, because if it works on those projects, we know that it's going to work on any project whatsoever. So from that perspective, is really there is no secret sauce. We've been kind of developing our own code, optimization code of the publishing and the rest. So, and again, 10 million lines of code, it's a lot. That's what we have kind of built within these years on, within Revisto.
Is hiring a bit challenging for this particular skill set? Because there's also companies in Silicon Valley and gaming industry fighting for that good talent and with the limited resources, and how do you do that?
I mean, we're fortunate from that perspective that we're not actually connected to a Silicon Valley directly, in a sense of that we're a Swiss company, we're based in Switzerland, but we have, people from 32 countries working in Robusta. We're a fully remote company, although we have our headquarters here in Lausanne, and people from Switzerland are coming, whenever they want to the office. But our spirit is a fully kind of remote, and all the processes and procedures within company have been built actually based on that spirit, very result oriented. And we've been hiring only a great talent, and having an ability to hire practically anywhere in the world. That gives you a bit more actually choices to hire the right talent for you, and not to be squeezed into the choice of, okay, you're in, I don't know, San Francisco or in San Jose, and you need to find only in that area. So and we've been, and good news is, I mean, for us, it's been important. I mean, I remember in 2016, 17, one of the potential investors have been looking at, like, I love your company, what you do, but I don't understand how do you do this sitting in Lausanne, having, managing the team around the globe. I don't believe in that. So you have to be all in the one office. So, and then when the pandemic actually came, and COVID started, and people started to go to actually remote, then it's been kind of apparent that, yeah, you can do it. It all depends how do you set your processes within the company. You can have so many companies where all the time everybody comes to the office, but you don't even have nearly the same efficiency that you have in a fully remote company, and vice versa. So I believe it's the priorities. It's how you actually set within your team the goals and OKRs. yearly, quarterly, and and overall understanding what we do within the company that makes a lot of gives a lot of influence on that.
One of the thing I noticed is you have very deep integrations with open space, QPix, and other adjacent workflows. So, what's your point of view on platform versus ecosystem in AEC software?
And I believe that AC industry software space is very closed, and it's unfortunate because I believe truly and wholeheartedly that no one can swallow this animal. It's too big to be swallowed. And right from the beginning, when we started Revisto, I said we need to be as open as possible in a sense of that, we can't actually oblige users to move from Revit to Tekla, from Tekla to Bentley, so on, and, to ArchiCAD, to anywhere else, to Nemetschek products. It's because it's irrelevant where the product, where the asset has been created. What's important is that you unite it all into one place that, you would be able to make the decision. So that's why we've been like a platform agnostic from that perspective. And wherever you create your data, Revisto will actually swallow and then align perfectly. And in Revisto, you'll see everything, whether it's a real time, it's point cloud data, it's models, sheets, so on and so forth. So that's why, from the partners' perspective, we work, and we've created from this year a partner program that we want to be coordinating, collaborating even more closely to the partners who have the same mindset to inter-exchange and not to kind of lock people in one single platform, but kind of say, okay, if you're feeling great to do, within your company, your issue tracking or whatever in this platform, it's not a problem whatsoever. So, because I don't believe that, everybody can do the same thing on the same level. Every company, every platform has their core competences, and it's up to the users to decide which platform they would like to use, right? So, and that openness for us is important a component, and that's why the integrations and the partnerships that we have with OpenSpace, with Cupix, with all other platforms that have the same mindset is one of the key kind of points of ours.
Lastly, for a construction founder listening to this podcast, what would be your advice in go to market and other areas?
Listen, I think AEC is a very, very, like if you're talking about the GTM perspective, right? It's not the same as, and we saw in our practice, the people who would come, for instance, to our company from a pure SaaS perspective, they would kind of see the huge differences, right? You cannot just apply this pure SaaS logic, unfortunately, into AEC industry and then get the same result. And that it doesn't work. So, again, you need to be so close to the industry, to the aspects of the clients of yours, whether it's a construction companies or architecture engineering companies, how they do their business, how they do the bidding processes, right? How do they deliver the projects, part of the entire project delivery, or as a partner as part of it, and how it influences on their margins, and so on and so forth. So you would actually adjust your, offering, pricing, whatever you want to call it, that would make sense to them. Because if you're going to come and say, you know what, I don't care what you do, you just, pay me 1% or whatever from it doesn't work. You have to make sure that it's a win-win situation, and you do understand their the business, the way they do, and how they offer their services, and where is their kind of pain points, and basically go and address to those pain points. If we talk generally, specifically, I can talk a lot of stuff because we went through so many iterations building the our pricing and the offerings and the way we sell. You cannot sell the same way, for instance, to general contractor and the architect. It's a two different kind of type of pricing you have to have, because unfortunately it doesn't work the same way. They have different approaches. They have different kind of margins, and so on and so forth. So if you have design build, it's one thing. If you're just construction, if you're MEP, like subcontractors, and so on and so forth. So we kind of found our kind of sweet spots that we see that it's a win-win situation, and we work. And still, after all these years, we're kind of evaluating and kind of looking at what would be the best, even better, to kind of offering for the clients. Because again, we're trying to be kind of make a win-win situation, right? And just work on ourselves, saying, this is how much you have to pay, and so on and so forth. I would not go to If you look at specifically, I would not go to a token based. I think token based is very, very, I mean, even look at AI.
Yes.
Look at what's happening now. It's a nightmare, right? You can't actually control the cost, and all these companies in the AC industry, they wanna. I mean, any other industries, companies as well, but I mean, especially AC industry, they are operating in a thin margins, and for them, it's important to kind of understand how much money they're going to spend on on their tech stack, how much margin, how much what would be the predictability. So that component of the predictability is important for you, for anyone who wants to start their business in this industry, to keep in mind when they think of their offerings.
Any comments on the channel? Like, is it in-person events, cold calling, LinkedIn, email outreach, ads?
I mean, I can tell that what worked for us is the events. Like, I mean, historically, we started our promotion, basically the sales processes, through events, because this is where you had the highest credibility. And when you don't, your sales are not going and just pitching, saying, we're the best or whatever. You're actually hearing from your peers who are actually sharing their experiences and how it works. And then you actually start to build the process. And I can tell that in early days, when we're looking at pipeline on from those, I mean, the ROI from those events, it was like 7 out of 10 prospects who were not users actually in of Revizto, after an event within next 60 days would become a client, because that credibility, that it's not just a sales pitch from a sales guy, but it comes from my peer, and I can actually ask any questions, and I see it's clear to me. That's that was like one of the, at least from the early days, it was like a good starter of ours. And then of course it's word of mouth, because it's a small industry. A lot of companies, I mean, I'm doing this project, it worked, and let's deploy to another project, so on and so forth. So a big component of our sales, it comes from the repetitive sales from the project team members within the same company, or moving to another company. And that's even the same way. The way we work is that we are working on a project based, and then more project the company does, then we start talking about the enterprise level deployment across all the projects that has the BIM, for instance, and in the future non-BIM, they could actually use across the entire company, and they will save a lot of money doing that, right? So cold calls, again, the salespeople should have the industry we have. You cannot bring it's very tough for a sales guy who comes from outside of the industry to get into this industry very fast. It's not a rocket science. It's going to take maybe a year or so. But that credibility perspective, knowing people, the network, that these guys, you had a business, your name is under, it's so important in this industry, that they know you and you have a name behind it, not just a cold call of a company, of a person that you don't know, and you're taking a call, and they somehow they're convincing you to buy a product. That's why we're still in this industry, which is very conservative. They want to know with whom they're dealing with. The projects are multi-billion-dollar projects, or $100 million of projects, and nobody wants to risk to just use something that you don't know and you don't have a track record. So that's, again, specifically speaking in ACE industry, this is what's happening. And the name is so important, and your credibility is very important. That's what actually we preserve, and we work very hard to kind of, whatever we say, we always deliver. That's kind of our credo and motto. And that's something that we keep it so dearly, and trying to do everything to kind of deliver whatever we say. That's our kind of number one kind of priority for the industry.
The journey is very inspiring, and the endurance of 17 years, like, is very admirable. So thanks a lot for sharing your story and journey on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and have a great day.